Hello, and welcome to the Washington Farm Bureau Update, a podcast designed to provide the latest agriculture, legislative, and Farm Bureau information. Well, greetings, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the WFB Update. I am Ben Tyndall, and I am excited to say I am joined in the studio by our very own Bailey Peters. So I am so glad you were able to do this with me today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
Well, you have been working along with David Stewmiller for really the past couple months on this summer edition of Neighbors, our Washington Farm Bureau publication that we do. For those who haven't seen it, there are some amazing articles in there that you wrote, as well as some valuable information to support local farmers. Can you give us some information about what people can look forward to in this edition of Neighbors, what went into it? And then if you would introduce our guest, as she played a real key role in this publication.
Of course. Well, Neighbors is one of the favorite parts of my job that I have. I love the time of year where I get to reach out to farmers and really learn their story and just capture, why did they get into agriculture? Are they first generation, fourth generation, or like our guest today, she's fifth generation. And it's just this great opportunity to learn about Washington Farm Bureau members. We all come from a very diverse walks of life, and so it's super fun. This year was a little interesting because I'm calling it the Neighbors circa with COVID, like it's COVID Neighbors, because we had to do all of our interviews safely distanced. So instead of going to farms like we usually do in the past and capturing photos, we were doing all of our interviews via phone, via email, and really relying on the members that we chose for the stories to kind of be our legs on the ground.
Right.
And the guest that we have today is super special because combines two things that I love, coffee and farming. I'll let her introduce herself and kind of tell us about herself in a little bit, but we have Shelley Quigley on the line and tell you a little bit about how we came to bring her into Neighbors. So goodness, it was probably almost a year ago, maybe. Maybe it hasn't been that long. Maybe I'm exaggerating. 8 months, 6 months, a while back.
Yeah.
Who knows with COVID now. So a while back, I had sent an email to all of our membership that explained this kind of dream that I had for celebrating our Centennial. And I wanted a coffee roast that was a Centennial blend. And so we sent out an email looking for Farm Bureau members that were involved in coffee, that were involved in Farm Bureau. And Shelley was the perfect fit. She emailed me and was like, hey, this kind of sounds like me. I'm doing this. I have this farm. And it was perfect. And I'm like, this is great. She can make our coffee. It's delicious coffee. She has a perfect story where I can tell it in Neighbors. And so I already had this neighbor story picked long in advance because I knew I wanted to tell the story of Shelley, who we have on the line.
Well, Shelley, thank you for joining us. This is Shelley Quigley, and she is the president of the Rome Coffee Roasters. But Shelley, before we dive into the coffee portion, which is probably some of our favorites, tell us a little bit. I know you have, like Bailey mentioned, a long farming history. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're coming from.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am a fifth generation farmer, as Bailey mentioned. My great-great-grandfather immigrated from Germany in 1888, and we are now in our 132nd year of farming, which is awfully easy to remember because I was born in 1988, so it helps to just add 100 years to however old I am. So I grew up on the farm. My mom was the farmer in our family. My dad did not work in farming. He worked in Spokane. And so my role model was seeing my mom farming, and we always had a field manager that helped with a lot of the field work. And so that's kind of the model that I have flowed into. I worked under my mom as an apprentice for several years before she kind of stepped back into retirement, which is a relative term in farming, but she kind of handed the reins over to me. And so for the last year and a half or so, I've been operating the farm and getting the coffee roasting company off the ground, which has been really exciting. I always wanted to come back to the farm, have always wanted to be in farming since I was young. Even when people told me, you got to try other things, I was pretty determined to come back. So it's been really exciting and great to be back on the farm, and exciting to get this coffee roasting off the ground and kind of see how that can expand the reach and horizons of the farm as a whole.
That is amazing. So this, at least in my mind, is not the most obvious pairing. We have a lot of kind of direct marketing operations that farms use. So tell us about how you transitioned from farming into coffee roasting. How did that company start out?
It's interesting when I think back on it because, like you said, it's not the most direct link. But my husband and I have always been just ready to jump into things. When we first got married 10 years ago, we moved to Baltimore City on the East Coast, where we both were teachers for 3 years. And we're always kind of thinking about our next adventure, whether it's travel or experiences or starting new endeavors. And since I was probably a young teenager, I've always been really interested in trying to connect people with farming. I grew up in a farming community with a farm family, and it was always very real to me, the people that are behind all the food that we consume on a not even daily basis, a multiple times daily basis.
Sure.
And I really had a lot of friends in other places and cities and especially when I was teaching in Baltimore, I taught middle school science, and seeing these students that just had no connection at all, no idea. I had a young girl that I made cookies one day, and she insisted, like, what brand of dough did you use? And I was like, well, no, I made them from scratch. And she's like, well, right, but what dough did you start with? She just couldn't fathom. I mean, then she's like, how do you do that? And so I kind of, flour and water, kind of explained it to her. And it really has always been on my heart to try to bring people out to the farm. And we are a dryland wheat farm. Small grains, but mostly wheat. And it is not as easy to bring people out as maybe if you have a pumpkin patch or an apple orchard that people
Sure.
can come, pick from. And we love to share our experience of farming, and especially this time of year as we get ready for harvest, it's really great to have friends and family come experience that. But I've always been kind of looking like, how else can I get people that we don't already know to come and see that connection between the people and the food, to understand that farming and food isn't all from this huge industrial complex, but that family farms are behind a lot of it. And it kind of just, one day we were driving and we'd been thinking about a coffee shop, but we couldn't do that on the farm, and we didn't really want to open a business in Spokane. And it kind of just struck me, well, what if we just roasted coffee? We can roast it on the farm, and then we can ship it or wholesale it to other places, but then we can have it be in the same location, and we can also see about bringing people out. So we really wanted to make that connection. And having had the opportunity a few years ago to tour several coffee plantations in Hawaii and seeing the farmers there that were working on those spaces, and seeing that it's just a different kind of farming, and it's not something we can do in Washington State because we don't have the climate for it, but wanting to connect people again with where things come from. And so kind of creating, no, we're not growing coffee beans on the farm. That wouldn't work, but we are roasting them on the farm, and we are trying to get them sourced responsibly from other farmers and support that whole farming network around the globe.
Now, Shelley, one of my favorite pieces about this farm, kind of what you said, is you're trying to connect the business with where it came from. And there's that network that you've kind of established with farmers. But there's also this really cool piece of history that I think you've established on your own farm. And I would love for you to elaborate, because I know this. What is the facility that you actually roast in? That barn, that remodeled barn? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think that's the coolest project.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Bailey, because that was definitely a factor as well. We Farmstead Summit, where we are kind of based out of now, isn't the same house that I grew up in, but it is adjacent to our land, and we acquired it a little over 10 years ago. And this particular farmstead has several outbuildings. The house is over 100 years old, and everything else we're not entirely sure, but this particular building is over 80 years old, and it was just an old kind of truck shop, kind of a small barn that was on the property that had always been a little bit ramshackle, and started with a severe tilt and a dirt floor, and the foundation fell in when we started to, one part of it fell in when we started to pour concrete. And so, any remodel project is going to have twists and turns, and this one was no exception. And so it's been a really fun project, though, to bring life back to that. And as we as we cleaned it out, we just had the most incredible time. It has a lofted area that we had to clean out, and there was just so many treasures that we found there. There was World War II, a trench coat from someone that had lived on the property. There was military papers from that person. There was Reich marks that had been brought back, presumably from the war. There was old newspaper bags from somebody that must have worked for the Spokesman Review, like just such neat treasures that we're really hoping at some point that we can highlight and put into some preservation type frames and have it in the roastery. We haven't gotten quite that far yet, but it was just an adventure the whole way, and has been really awesome to see it blossom into a functional building that we can invite people out to eventually when COVID ends, and and really celebrate that space and embrace that history.
I love it. Well, tell me a little bit how, you kind of alluded to this a bit, but coming from your farming background, how has that helped you in establishing this business?
It's helped in a number of different ways. On one hand, in a very just logistical standpoint, I've been helping run the farm business for a number of years, and even as a teenager and growing up, I helped my mom work in the office and get that job done. And having that business experience and coming from that side of things has really helped to just understand some of the ways that you have to work with the government and get things licensed, and understanding all of some of those nuances has been really beneficial. But also coming from a standpoint, like you said, as a farmer, and as we entered into this, there's a number of different companies that you can work with to import the coffee beans, because like I said, they have to grow between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So we are a little ways away from there. And so as we looked into things, trying to weigh the value of cost and who can do it for the most economical level, but also who's doing it in a way that is honoring the people and the places that this coffee is coming from.
Yes.
We really want to make sure that we are highlighting that, and that we are not taking advantage of people in a different part of the world from us, that we are helping support those economies and those family farms as well, because so many of them are family farms. So trying to connect that understanding for people that this coffee, similarly to the farm, where people see a loaf of bread in the grocery store and say, bread, great, a loaf of bread, but don't think about the fact that it came from a wheat field not so long ago. And I think that happens with coffee too. It's so common in our daily lives that we just think of it as coming out of your coffee pot or out of Starbucks or whatever. We don't necessarily think of where it started and how much work and love and pain went into getting it all the way to your cup.
So now the company is Roam Coffee Roasters, and that's ROAM, Roam. Can you tell us a little bit, how did you come up with that name? I love the logo, this really fun, beautiful picture of an air balloon. Tell me how you came up with the name and maybe the logo.
Yeah, my husband and I, this is primarily my business, but my husband's been enormously supportive, and it's been really fun to just brainstorm together. And we both just absolutely love to travel. And so Rome started from that standpoint. We enjoy all kinds of adventuring. We enjoy camping and traveling internationally and traveling within our own state. There's so much to see in Washington. There's so much variety, and how everybody needs a good cup of coffee when they're adventuring. And there's no reason you can't have a good cup of coffee while you're adventuring.
Yes.
And the fact that this coffee does have to come from somewhere else, because, like I said, it's not growing here. Right. And so it inherently is a global endeavor. And I just love I love hot air balloons. I just think that they have this beautiful old world charm. And then of course the particular hot air balloon that we have in our logo features a map of the world, kind of a globe aesthetic to it. And so just kind of trying to bring all of those things together. It's a little hard to see unless you're looking really closely, but instead of a basket hanging from the hot air balloon, there's a little suitcase with a little tiny coffee cup on it if you're looking really close. And so it was just fun to put those little touches in there that really spoke to our hearts for travel and learning. And we hoped would speak to other people's hearts for adventure and experiencing the world around them, whether that's right out your backyard because of quarantine, or whether it's in different times when you could travel across the globe in a few hours. It's just incredible the way that we are connected as a global people these days.
I think, Shelley, you also really have a heart for people. I hear that when you're talking to us. I heard that when I was interviewing with you and in your responses. And I know that Rome Roasters has done a lot to give back. I mean, you volunteered to do this huge project for Farm Bureau, and we are so thankful for that. And I don't know how many times I've said thank you, but excited. Thank you again. But you also...
No, it's been such a thrill for us, too.
Oh, I love that. And you guys have also done other projects that have outreach and giving back. And, we've kind of mentioned COVID a couple of times. I know I saw on your social media, you guys were doing coffee giveaway for COVID heroes, and you've done other fundraisers in the past. And so would you say that's a big part of Rome Roasters, is this kind of philanthropic feel? You're giving back to the community, you're giving back to global impacts.
Yeah, I think that's a really accurate perception of it. As we have been starting this, we're hoping to create kind of a wing of merchandise that's coffee for a cause. And so right now, as you said, kind of those causes being the COVID Hero blend that we've got, and also the Farm Bureau blend, of course, kind of again with that global mindedness and just like you said, people, and just trying to do the little things that a coffee roaster can do to try and continue to pay it forward, if you will. And during quarantine out on the farm, having the roastery right there, we kind of asked ourselves, how can we give back? How can we do something for the people that are able to put their lives on the line? And so we just kind of came to the fact that, we have all this coffee here, and the people that really need a pick me up right now are the people that are keeping everybody going, whether that's in healthcare or delivery services or working in grocery stores and things like that. So that was something we were really grateful that we were able to do. And it was a really, really incredible experience. But we definitely are excited about the opportunities that we've had so far to give back, and continuing to be on the lookout for when and where we can have those opportunities.
That's wonderful. The work that you all are doing with Rome Coffee Roasters, and we've talked about this unexpected pandemic that we have been living through for really the past 6 months now, and all of the uncertainty that we've got going on this year. In the midst of all that, 2020 is still Washington Farm Bureau's Centennial year. So COVID-19 or no COVID-19, or in-person annual meeting or no in-person annual meeting, we're still going to celebrate that milestone, by golly. And Shelley, you and Rome Coffee Roasters are playing a wonderful role in how we're commemorating this. So Rome Coffee Roasters is offering the Centennial blend, the Washington Farm Bureau Centennial blend. Tell us about this blend of coffee and kind of what went into creating that.
Yeah, it was a really fun experience. We right now have 4 different origins of coffee that we are featuring. And so when we started to think about the Centennial blend, we started to think about what flavors, in my experience, what kind of coffee do farmers want? And knowing that more than just farmers were going to be potentially buying this blend, but that hopefully there would be some farmers that were on the other end of this that would be consuming it.
Sure.
And so I thought about all of the farmers that I know, and the places where they consume coffee, and the times early in the morning or right smack dab in the middle of the afternoon, and what they're looking for. And so we really wanted to make something that would be enjoyable for people in those situations. And so we ended up with doing a blend of a Colombian bean and a Guatemalan bean that we have, and both have these really rich flavors that are kind of deep, and there's some chocolatey and hazelnutty flavors, and we didn't want to roast it so dark that you lost those flavors, but we also didn't want it to be really light, because I feel like in my sphere and in my life that farmers want something with a little bit of kick. And so we went with a medium, a little bit on the darker side of medium roast, and really tried to bring out those flavors, but also have kind of this bold feeling to it that was something that you felt like was going to help you start your day.
Well, how can members get a hold of some of this?
We have this for sale on our website. So our website is roamroasters.coffee, and you can get there from our homepage. There's a banner on the front page that you can click on to take you to the Centennial blend, or you can click on the coffee and merch button. There's also a direct link that's a little bit longer, but it's roamroasters.coffee/shop/WFB-Centennial-blend.
And you can also check out social media. We're going to be running a lot of promotions coming up. We've started a little bit with a soft push, but as we keep rolling into annual meeting and what that looks like this year, we're definitely going to be pushing this coffee. And I know we have some in the office. Our retro safety staff loves it. They've been consuming it. They're asking where they can get more. I have one more bag in my office, and I'm afraid that if I leave my office, it's going to get stolen. So we need to get more for our office for sure. But it is delicious. And it's really great because at Farm Bureau here, we're busy. We're shipping masks. We are getting rid of hand sanitizer. We're working on those shipments. So it's been really great that Rome Coffee Roasters has stepped up and they set up this website, and they will ship directly from the roastery. And that means that our members are getting the freshest coffee, which is great.
As we kind of wrap up, all this talk about centennials and birthdays makes me think of when we put this article out over the summer, and you mentioned it in the interview here, that you were pregnant, and that now has been a new birthday in your family, and wanted to hear about your new son.
Yeah. It's definitely been an interesting year. Like you said, 2020 has had its ups and downs, but for us, a major up was that our son, Finian, was born on July 16th, more than a week later than he was supposed to arrive. So we were very ready when he finally made his appearance. So that's been really exciting to have that sixth generation finally arrive. And he was
goodness.
a kind of a 10th anniversary present for my husband and I. He's our first. So we are pretty smitten with him right now. He definitely can do no wrong right at the moment. But he's been out on the farm and out to the roastery, and so far seems to love it just as much as we do.
Good.
But we might be projecting a little.
No, that is amazing. Well, congratulations. That is so wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, Shelley, I think that kind of wraps it up for us. Thank you so much for taking some time and visiting with Bailey and I. And thank you for your leadership with Rome Coffee Roasters, sharing your story, and as well as really helping us celebrate this Washington Farm Bureau Centennial. You're playing a key role in that. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that opportunity to be a part of it. We're really excited about it.
The WFB Update is a production of the Washington Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture in Washington State, ensuring our family farms continue to feed the world. To learn more, visit our website at www.wsfb.com.